year is 1989 and communism has just fallen in Czechoslovakia. The process of transitioning to a market economy is now underway. The state-owned car manufacturer, Skoda, would be privatised as part of this transition. The trouble is, Skoda had a terrible reputation. While Skodas were some of the best cars available in the Eastern Bloc, by Western standards, Skodas were still considered to be terrible cars. If you said Skoda in 1989, you'd likely hear someone ask, how do you double the value of a Skoda? To which the answer would be, fill up the petrol tank. But it's not all bad news. As they say, when one door closes, another one opens. Although that might just be the poor build quality.
Come on, what do you call a skip on wheels, eh? A Skoda convertible.
Not funny.
In 1991, Skoda would be bought by VW. Under VW ownership, the brand would begin transitioning to using VW platforms for their cars. One of these new cars produced under VW ownership would be the Octavia. The first generation Skoda Octavia would be using the platform from the Mark IV VW Golf. Whilst the Mark IV Golf is widely hated and considered to be a floppy, unresponsive puddle of diarrhea, still better than anything Skoda had produced under communism. But Skoda had an issue still. They had a terrible reputation from their communist past. In the late 1990s, it was still the case that if you said Skoda, people would expect the engine power of a handheld drill combined with the ride quality and creature comforts of a 1930s tractor. Skoda needed to turn this reputation around and show the world they meant business. The brand needed to show that they could compete with the big boys over in the West. And what better way to show off your engineering prowess than to go rallying? This is the story of the Skoda Octavia WRC. Skoda had a history of motorsport. Even under communism, Skoda's lightweight cars made up for their lack of power with their rear engine handling. They never entered in the top classes of rallying, but in the lower classes, they were actually quite successful. Skoda's long history on the rally stages of the world made the WRC the perfect sport for them to crack. But no longer would they be entering the sport on easy mode in the junior classes. They wanted to tackle the top class, and the new World Rally Car regulations were perfect for what they wanted to achieve. But our story does not begin with the Octavia WRC itself. It begins with another car. In need of some experience in the World Rally Championship, Skoda first decided to enter the F2 kit car class, continuing the brand's tradition of entering in the lower classes of rallying. But the F2 class wasn't like the junior classes of old. These weren't low-powered production spec economy cars. These were ultra-lightweight, technologically advanced thoroughbred rally cars. In fact, in certain conditions, the F2 class cars were actually faster than the Group A and World Rally cars that contested the top class. It would be here where Skoda could hone in their engineering skills and prepare for the main challenge of the World Rally Car class. They started out with the Felicia kit car. The Skoda Felicia was an updated version of the late 80s Skoda Favorit that incorporated some VW Group parts and better quality manufacturing. The Felicia kit car would win the 1994 2-litre Rally World Cup, the 1990s equivalent of WRC2 today. The Felicia kit car would be replaced by the far more powerful and advanced Octavia kit car starting from 1997. The Octavia kit car was powered by a VW Group 2-litre naturally aspirated engine. The kit car would serve as the basis for the later World Rally car. The Octavia kit car was not a particularly special car within the F2 kit car class, scoring modest results throughout 1998. The car was also quite rare due to the fact that it was only used in 2 seasons before being sold to privateers. Only 7 Octavia kit cars were produced, compared with 20 Seat Ibiza kit cars and 112 Peugeot 307 Maxi kit cars. But the results were not the important thing for the Octavia kit car. The Octavia kit car was to serve as the basis for the World Rally car. This was the same strategy Citroën was employing with the Citroën Zara kit car, serving as the basis for the World Rally car, which won 3 drivers and 3 manufacturers' world championships. Having completed a season with the Octavia kit car, Skoda was ready to debut their World Rally car in 1999. The car was to be driven by Bruno Thierry, Emil Trainer, Pavel Sibera, and experienced one-time rally winner Armin Schwarz. (1999) saw the debut of many new World Rally cars. Ford had introduced the Focus, Peugeot brought out their 206, the Skoda Octavia was ready. All the hard work of the engineers and mechanics had led to this moment, when the Skoda Octavia would debut. But, unfortunately for Skoda, Armin Schwarz developed an electrical issue whilst driving to the start line. He retired from the rally before even reaching the start line. This left only Pavel Sibera to represent the Czech manufacturer, but it seemed that lightning could strike twice. Sibera's Octavia ground to a halt on the road section after the start ramp before reaching the first stage. Neither car had even driven a single competitive kilometre, yet both had already retired. Skoda's rally was over. The team would miss the following 2 rounds in Sweden and Kenya, as they were only doing a partial campaign in 1999 to develop the car, with both cars retiring in Spain and Portugal. Although at least this time, the car made it onto the stages. It would take until round 8 before the Octavia actually finished a rally, and even when it did finish, the car proved to be severely lacking in pace. To be fair on Skoda, unreliability was the norm in late 90s rallying. Colin McRae managed to finish 6th in the Drivers' Championship in 1999, despite only finishing 3 out of the 14 events that year. Skoda's poor showing in 1999 was not the end of the world for them though. 1999 was intended to purely be a test season for Skoda to develop the Octavia. Still, Skoda were hoping to finish the 1999 season on a high. Stage 1 looked to be another poor showing from the Skoda team. Bruno Thierry and Armin Schwarz placed 19th and 21st respectively, but over the course of the rally, things would begin to improve. Armin Schwarz would make his way up the leaderboard, but it was Bruno Thierry who really impressed. On stage 2, he finished 8th on the stage, promoting him to 13th overall, and on stage 6, he placed 4th. The result was that he improved his overall position to 11th by the end of day 1. And he wasn't done yet. On day 2, he'd climbed yet another spot on the leaderboard to 10th place, but it was day 3 when Bruno really impressed. Impressive pace early on in the day saw Thierry climb to 7th on the leaderboard, and then something miraculous happened. On stage 20, Tommi Mäkinen's engine failed. Then, on stage 21, Carlos Sainz's suspension broke, and on the final stage, the same happened to Didier Aurier. Thierry finished 4th, bringing Skoda their first points. Meanwhile, Schwarz, despite showing some impressive pace as well, crashed out. For the 2000 season, It would again be another partial campaign for the Skoda team. However, in 2000, Skoda had sorted out its reliability after the woeful 1999 season. For the 2000 season, it would again be another partial campaign for the Skoda team. However, in 2000, Skoda had sorted out its reliability after the woeful 1999 season, with the team having only a single mechanical retirement for the entire 2000 season of the World Rally Championship. The car's later reliability and its large size would give it the nickname the Czech tank. However, this is also the issue with the Skoda Octavia WRC. Skoda had taken the World Rally Car rules quite literally with the Octavia. It was the right size for the class, it had all the features that a World Rally car would be expected to have, and it was built well. It had nothing more than what you'd expect a World Rally car in the era would have. This meant it wasn't particularly innovative. It didn't have active suspension, ABS, paddle shift, or any of the other new tech coming into early 2000s rally car. It was outdated from day one, and this led to a car which was reliable after solving the teething problems, but it also meant it was incredibly slow. The Evo 2 version was unveiled in Cyprus in 2000, but the car did not provide the boost in results the Czech team wanted for 2000, with it still being a tough, reliable, but ultimately slow and uninnovative rally car. The Evo 2 was again used in 2001, and in the new year, the results finally started to improve for the big Octavia. Armin Schwarz shocked the world in the first stage by wrestling the Czech tank to 4th place on the tight and twisty Stage 1, going ahead of the likes of Colin McRae, Carlos Sainz and Tommy Mäkinen. The following few stages would prove difficult for Schwarz, who would drop to 9th position overall, but impressive pace in the second half of day 1 would see the highly experienced German back up into 5th place overall by the end of the day, and even better, this was on pure pace. Bruno Thierry would also record a top 10 finish, but scored no points as they were only awarded up to 6th place at the time. Bad luck would befall the Skoda team over the next 4 rounds. Armin Schwarz would crash out in Sweden, the clutch would let go in Portugal, and the steering would break in Spain. As for Bruno Thierry, he would finish 10th in Sweden, retire in Portugal with electrical issues, and finish 10th again in Spain. But it was the next round in Argentina when the worst of Skoda's luck would come. After stage 10 of Argentina was completed, Armin Schwarz was 11th, behind his teammate Bruno Thierry in 10th. They were out of the points, but it was early in a rally known for being tough and causing retirements, something the Czech tank was cut out for. But as the Skoda pairing were parked on the roadside waiting at a time control to enter the service park, a fire broke out in the spectators' car park at the service park. The fire had spread to around 10 cars, leading to the local fire brigade being dispatched to extinguish the fire. As the fire truck was on its way going in the opposite direction to the rally's route on the road section, it approached a corner too fast, colliding with Skoda's chief engineer Dr. Jens Pohlmann before overturning and colliding with both Octavias. Miraculously, nobody was killed, and the crew of both Skodas, Armin Schwarz, Manfred Hiemer, Bruno Thierry and Stefan Prévost, were uninjured. However, Dr. Jens Pohlmann was left in a critical condition. Both Skodas would retire from the rally as a result. Dr. Jens Pohlmann made a full recovery.
Also Stefan, and suddenly I hear the people crying, and suddenly I saw this big truck on me, and fortunately I was not fastened, and I had just time to move, and this truck came over the cabbage. But unfortunately I saw also when he hit Mr. Pohlmann, our big boss, but I will remember this picture all my life because it's unbelievable.
The next 2 rounds would again be rough rallies, Cyprus and Greece. After the Argentina disaster, the famously rocky Mediterranean rallies would pay into the Octavia's strengths, but They would ultimately disappoint as the team again failed to score any points. But what was coming up next would be the toughest of the tough rallies on the calendar. Skoda would bring 3 cars to Kenya for the only African round on the calendar. The 3-day event would see crews cover 2,200 kilometres, 1,129 of which would be on competitive stages. Drivers had to watch for mud holes, rough rocks, powdery sounds called fesh that could see even the most well-prepared car getting stuck, wildlife, and all sorts of other hazards. But the most unique hazard the drivers would have to deal with was local traffic. Safari Rally Kenya was one of the last FIA-sanctioned events to feature cars competing at full speed on roads still open to local traffic. As a safety measure, each car would have a helicopter flying ahead to warn the drivers of hazards or traffic. The African adventure would see the most car-breaking conditions imaginable thrown at the event's 40 entrants. It didn't take long before competitors began to fall by the wayside. On the very first stage, the Subaru of Richard Burns had slowed to a crawl. The front left suspension had collapsed. Colin McRae would change from his usual flat-out driving style in the hopes of keeping the car from being destroyed by the rough Kenyan roads. On stage 1, he was third fastest, 28 seconds down. Mackinnon would hit a bird on his way through stage 1, setting the second fastest time, but the fastest stage time would go to none other than Armin Schwarz. The Skoda team was leading their first ever world rally. Skoda knew that they didn't have the fastest car, but they did have the strongest car. Their strategy was to push flat out and bait the other teams into pushing flat out as well and breaking their cars. The other teams took the bait. On stage 2, as the faster cars picked up the pace, Schwarz was only able to set the 6th fastest time, dropping into 2nd place. But Skoda were playing the long game here. On stage 3, Armin Schwarz would hit a bad bump, injuring his hand. But the car was still okay. The Czech tank may have fared better than its driver, but the loss of pace meant Schwarz was only 8th on the stage, falling to 5th overall. But the long game was working, as stage 3 saw more competitors drop out. Colin McRae's steering arm would fail not once, but twice, with a second time leading to a close call with a crowd of spectators that he missed, and also would lead to the end of his rally. Stage 4 was a bad stage for Peugeot. Didier Auriol's Peugeot 206 would end up burning to the ground, whilst Marcus Grönholm's 206 would get stuck after being thrown into the air over a bad bump. The short wheelbase made the 206 particularly susceptible to this sort of crash. But amongst all this carnage, by the end of day 1, Armin Schwarz was still running in the points, sitting 6th overall. Day 2 of the rally started with WRC's longest stage that year, the 124km long Marigat stage. Benefiting from good pace and the retirement of Carlos Sainz, Schwarz was now up to 4th place. The following stage, Schwarz set the 3rd fastest time, maintaining his overall position of 4th place. The cliffs of stage 7 proved to be no challenge for the Czech tank, nor were the mud holes of stage 8. The bumps on stage 9 were so severe, they caused the roof of Tommy Mackinnon's leading Mitsubishi to detach. By the end of day 2, Schwarz had his Octavia in a stable 4th position. Day 3 started with controversy. Heavy fog meant that only Tommy Mackinnon's helicopter had been able to take off. Spotter helicopters were a vital safety tool on the Safari Rally to keep the local road users safe by warning the rally drivers of traffic or wildlife ahead. Mackinnon was allowed to start, as he had his helicopter running. Harry Rovanperä in the 2nd place Peugeot was also allowed to start, as the FIA allowed Rovanperä to use their helicopter. But With the FIA adamant that the drivers would run the stage, cars began to enter the stages without their safety helicopters, much to the annoyance of Armin Schwarz.
Everybody, all teams and all drivers agree that we don't go into any section without a helicopter. And now they changed the regulation that the stewards say we have to go, and I think that for a safety point is not correct.
The lack of helicopters nearly saw Schwarz eliminated from the rally, as the flying tank nearly had a head-on collision with a local car, but luckily disaster was avoided. Meanwhile, the regular safari rally hazards of rough road conditions certainly caused some reliability issues. Freddie Loik suffered a blown turbo in the Mitsubishi. Meanwhile, Francois Delacour broke a prop shaft. Further down the stage, third place Peter Solberg was making good time. His Subaru was fast, but his front right wheel was even faster. Given the performance loss from not having a front right wheel, Solberg retired, but the wheel did set the second fastest stage time. All of this was good news for Armin Schwarz, who was now into third place, but despite his promotion to third place, Armin only had one topic he wanted to talk about in the post-stage interview.
Piss me off. We say it is a helicopter available, there must be a helicopter available, so we went now through the stage without a helicopter. And then getting the helicopter in the stage with all the...
But, with stage 11 cancelled, there were now only 2 stages remaining. Armin could see the podium in sight. The Czech tank, the underdog, the big simple saloon, was finally doing exactly what Skoda was hoping for. They were a small Czech team with a technological simple car, taking on the high-tech beasts from established Western manufacturers. Nobody was making any Skoda jokes now. Instead, rally fans around the world cheered on the plucky Octavia as it powered towards the finish line. They may not have been leading, but finally, the Octavia was ready to prove that this was a car to be taken seriously. Now, it was just time to bring it home. But, with the length of the Safari Rally, cars were at the edge of their limits. Skoda had run out of new dampers, the result being a very rough ride for the 2 remaining Octavia crews in the rally. But the rough rides didn't stop the Czech tank. Stage 12 was completed without fuss, and now for stage 13, the final stage of the rally. On stage 13, immediately there was bad news. One of the Skodas crashed into a hole, starting a fire in the engine bay. The good news, it was not Armin Schwarz's car that was out. Being on the final stage with no issues for Schwarz, as the experienced German crossed the line, he made history. The first overall podium for Skoda in the history of the WRC. The Skoda had proven its strength and reliability. Only 15 of the 40 cars which started the rally finished it, but the rough terrain couldn't kill the Octavia. The Skoda Octavia WRC Evo 2 was used for the remainder of 2001, as well as 2002. Schwarz would move to Hyundai for 2002, whilst Kenneth Eriksson and Tony Gardemeister would be the full-time Skoda drivers for that year. Skoda would score points twice in 2002, including a double points finish in Argentina. For 2003, the final version of the car was unveiled, the Evo 3. With points on offer for the top 8 in 2002, the Octavia scored in the majority of rounds it entered, but only 2 of those were top 6 finishes. The car would be replaced mid-season by the new Fabia WRC, concluding the Octavia's career as a factory World Rally car. The car's lack of success made it unattractive to privateers for the World Rally Championship. This meant Octavias very quickly found their way into various national championships around the world. Of the 25 Octavia WRCs produced, 5 are still actively rallying to this day. The car's strength has also been proven through the relentless march of time too. As of today, only 2 Octavia WRCs has ever been written off by crashes or fire. The Czech tank lives on.